try to imagine to make sense of something that actually does not make sense. And the most knowledgeable monks, they would say, listen, this is a mystery and you just have to believe it. That's really what they would say. They said there is no logical explanation. This is a mystery and you just have to believe it. But really, I think, for most of us, just have to believe it just doesn't, as we say, it doesn't cut the mustard. It's not something we can really accept in a day and an age where we are constantly taught to question things and so on and so forth. Just believe it certainly didn't really go down well with me. And there were other things that are specific to the Catholic Church. For example, I could never really understand why I had to go and confess my sins to a priest. Right? And I think most of us at school couldn't understand that either. Because we lived with the monks. We lived with them every day. So we realized that these monks were just like us, human beings. They made mistakes. In fact, in reality, we realized that most of them had big problems. In fact, we reckon that a good number of them became monks because they just wanted to run away from the world. They didn't want to deal with things. So we found that really these monks were not these holy people, and this is not something my mother could never understand this. When I used to complain about my housemaster, she would say, yeah, well, he can't. I don't believe you. He's a priest. So what do you mean? I'm telling you, no, he's a priest. Priests don't do things like that. And really, that's the attitude. The attitude of your average Catholic is like that. The priest can't do anything because he is, he is almost some holy person. And why shouldn't he be? Because what is the priest doing? I mean, this priest gets a piece of ordinary bread, yeah, and he gets some wine, and they do this ritual called the Mass, right? And at the end of this ritual called the Mass, the bread is transformed into the body of Jesus, and the wine is transformed into the blood of Jesus. And by the way, not symbolically, when you eat the bread and drink the blood, you have to believe as a Catholic, or you had to in my days, that you are literally eating the literal flesh of Jesus and the literal blood and drinking literally his blood. Okay? Not symbolically, literally. And even an ex-priest, he confessed, right, that mentally, of course, and Jesus is God, right? So you're eating and you're drinking God, right? Seriously. But as a psychology, the priest believes that he is consuming God. And therefore God, and he is the one who has the power, through his ritual, not himself, of course, but it is the ritual that he does that causes this transformation to take place, right? Now, we used to ask awkward questions like, okay, we eat, the flesh of Jesus and drink the blood of Jesus, but when it comes out as poo and wee, do we poo Jesus and wee Jesus as well? Well, that's the sort of questions we would ask. We weren't holding anything back, right? And I don't know if they just used to say you can't ask questions like that. It's not, which is, I suppose from a point of view they said fair enough. You don't think like that about these things, right? And then the confession. But the confession was one that really used to, it really used to disturb me. Most of all because most of us at school were up to a lot of no good. We were doing a lot of, certainly forbidden things. And the idea that I had to go to one of the monks who run the school and to confess to them about all the things I'd been up to, it made it sound like some psychological spy system, right? That here they were, you did all of these things, then you have to go and tell them what you were doing. And it was like, you just must be joking. I'm not going to tell you all the things I used to be doing. So we actually used to make up stuff. We used to say like, I lied 3 times this week, and I was rude to such and such, and I felt jealous because this guy had a better stereo than me, and forgive me, Father, for I have sinned, because there's my son. Say 3 Hail Marys and 5 Our Fathers, and think deeply about the bad things you've done. I go, yeah. All right. And the other thing I didn't get is the forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Because I didn't just get why I have to tell the priest. This is what I really didn't get. Why do I have to tell? And I went to the abbot. To the abbot, he's the top guy. You would even probably say the top dog, right? Because they wear a dog collar, right? They call it the top dog, yeah. And you say, I said to him, listen, why do I have to come and confess my sins to you? Why? Because, what's so good about you that I have to confess my sins to you? Why can't I just ask God, oh God, I've been really bad, please forgive me? He said, yes, you can ask God if you want to, but if you just ask God, you can't be sure that God is going to forgive you. And again, I didn't say anything to him, but in my mind I'm thinking, so I can't be sure that God's going to forgive me, but I can be sure that he's going to listen to you, right? I'm saying no. Because I know between you and me there's no difference. There's nothing that makes you more holy than me, right? Now, in the meantime, I want to say something else that is going on. I am experiencing something else in terms of religion. And what I'm experiencing is something dramatically different. Now, in spite of the fact that monks take vows of poverty and chastity. Poverty, because they don't own any property. Every piece of property that they have, any gift that someone gives to them, actually belongs to the monastery. It does not belong to that monk. So they take vows of poverty, right? And they take vows of chastity, which means they never marry, okay? And so they live actually, in spite of these vows of poverty and chastity, they lived very, very comfortable lives, in fact, right? And the whole church and the rituals of the church are really surrounded by a paraphernalia of rites and rituals. I mean, if you've ever been to a mass, right? There's the singing and there's the chanting and there's the incense and, I used to be the altar boy. You have to hand the bread and the wine and you have to cover, everything has a little, you have the chalice and I can't remember what you have. You had to cover it this and you had to move it just in a certain way. You had to turn the cup 1/3 of a degree. I remember explaining all of this stuff to a friend of mine, a Muslim friend of mine. And actually we were up in the forest in the nighttime. He said, I think we better go back to the car now because I'm scared. It sounds like some cannibalistic voodoo ritual, right? And the funny thing is that when he said that, right? When he said that, I thought to myself, it really does. I never thought of it before, right? But there's all this ritual. And then I'm going to Egypt. Now, Egypt, of course, is a Muslim country, right? And in our house, we had a very, very nice lifestyle, right? We had a driver to drive us around. We had a sufragi to tidy up the house, right? We had a cook to cook our food. Anyway, I want to focus on the cook, Ibrahim. Ibrahim is really one of the most beautiful people I have ever met. Okay? And he used to pray 5 times a day. And this is the thing that immediately I want to focus on that impressed me about Ibrahim, the prayer. You see, there am I going to this Catholic monastery dealing with all of these things, and then I would come home, and what would we do? We'd find Ibrahim. The time would come for prayer. He would put his prayer mat down in the kitchen, and he would just start praying. And sometimes we would go in the kitchen, and we want a drink, and oh no, we can't get a drink, just wait for 5 minutes because Ibrahim is praying. And I remember looking at Ibrahim one day. He's wearing these simple clothes, this jalabiya, as they call it. He used to wear this jalabiya. Very simple, very humble man. Always humble. I never heard him shout, ever once. I never heard him shout. And then this prayer. I remember just watching him praying and just thinking, if you want to see someone who is worshipping God the way God should be worshipped, this is the way. Not the way they did it back in my school. Here is a man, he is just standing, simply bowing, standing, prostrating, quietly, silently, he's worshipping his Creator. And it had a very, very powerful impact on me, the comparison between this and that. And the comparison, by the way, was not only in religious terms. You see, going to Egypt was a really big shock in my life. I mean, obviously, any third world country compared to life in the West, okay, is, dirty, chaotic, confusing from many different angles. It's quite scary, okay? You go to a third world country, the way people drive, You know, we used to have a joke that the horn, the hooter, right, you know, is more important than the car engine. Yeah, you could push the car along, but if you didn't have a hooter, it was just, you know, you wouldn't survive. You know, and you know, it was like that. You know, really crazy. And the life in so many ways was crazy. And I have to say, for the first 2 years, I hated. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand Egypt. And then, you know, something happened. You know, as I got a bit older and I settled down, you know, I began to see what was going on. And then, as I suppose I moved into my teenage years, and, you know, I'm a sort of person who at that time used to think a lot and very deeply about all types of subjects, all types of things. And so one of the things I began to question, and I go back to my life in this monastic boarding school, is why am I here? Now, the question, why am I here, initially was a question, why am I here at this school? But then it soon moved on to a question as, why am I here on this earth? What is the purpose of my life? What is the reason for my existence? And I used to think about that. And then I figured, thinking about my school and what am I doing here and what am I supposed to do with my life, I sort of came to, I figured it out. I said, okay, I'm here at school so that I can work very hard and get good results for my A-levels, so I can go to a good university, preferably Oxford or Cambridge, you know, but if not, you know, another one, okay? And then I can get a good job. Now, when I get a good job, I can earn enough money to send my kids back to Ampleforth College so that they can study hard and get good results, so they can go to a good university, so they can get a good job, and they can go back and say they can earn enough money to send their kids back to Ampleforth College so that they can work. And I thought, my God, my existence is only to perpetuate the Roman Catholic middle class, you know, section of British society. I thought, is that the purpose of my life? That's what it's for? It was really depressing. And I thought to myself, no, this can't be the purpose of life. This can't be the reason for our existence. And so there was two things going on here. Actually, what I was doing was I was fundamentally questioning the whole premise of Western society. Because ultimately, basically, that's Western society. It's just to work hard. You're just a cog in the machine. That's all you are. You know, you're just a cog in the machine. As those days Pink Floyd used to sing, all in all, you're just another brick in the wall. And it was so true. I recently watched the film The Wall by Pink Floyd, well, recently 2-3 years ago. I know it's got music in and this and that, but I remember that film was something that was really transformative, because that film was so aggressively attacking. Actually, the funny thing about that, that film is even critical about the whole music industry. If you've ever seen the film, you'll realize that even the whole pop music industry, the rock star, everything, it is fundamentally questioning those things. And those powerful images of school kids going on this conveyor belt and then going into this mincing machine, and they're just coming out as mince, right? And it was like, that's just what you felt. I'm just part of the machine, right? Just part of the machine. I'm just being processed. And is this really, that's what life is about? That's what we're for? This is the purpose of our existence? I said to myself that I am sure there is something more profound, more deep, and there is a deeper meaning to life than that. And really, that's where the searching started. And I began to look through many different religions. And one of the religions I looked through